People now only have 1 month left to submit a claim under the First Nations drinking water settlement. Eligible First Nations communities and individuals have until March 7th to apply for nearly $2 billion in compensation. The $8 billion settlement is between Canada and certain First Nations and their members who are subject to a drinking water advisory that lasted at least 1 year. For more on the settlement, we're joined by Darian Baskatawang, who is the class action counsel. Thanks for joining us, Darian. Can you give us, our viewers, a brief overview of how this $8 billion settlement came to be?
Absolutely. So how it came to be, so this First Nations drinking water settlement is a significant milestone for Indigenous communities in Canada, finally addressing years of neglect from the federal government for its failure to provide and fund safe drinking water in Canada. It came to be because 3 different communities decided enough was enough and came together to sue the government of Canada for its failures and that for the harms that they committed onto people simply for living on reserve without clean, safe drinking water. And so we launched this class action in 2019, and in 2021 settled it and then got started on the claims process. And we're roughly 2 years in now. March 7, 2024 would be our 2-year mark and be the close of the first claims period.
And roughly $2 billion of that is for compensation. What is the other $6 billion for?
Absolutely. So the big win of this class action was not in compensation, $2 billion in compensation. What's the other 8 or 6, sorry? So the big win wasn't compensation, but rather the money that's there now to realize what safe drinking water in communities should be. So that $6 billion is meant for money to go into well-needed infrastructure in community, whether it be funding water treatment plants at actuals for the construction, upgrades, operations and maintenance, and so forth. It's to bring about safe drinking water in communities so that they never have to have boil water advisories or even do not use advisories ever again.
And for the compensation side of things, who's eligible for compensation and what kind of compensation would they be looking at? Sure.
So people who are eligible for this class action to be an individual class member are First Nations members who lived or ordinarily resided on a reserve on an impacted, let me restart that. Individual class members are First Nations members who've ordinarily resided on a reserve on an impacted First Nation between 1995 and 2021. Now, there's some confusion around that because a lot of that will depend on your birthday as well. So if you're like me, older than 27, there's a good chance you'll fall between our eligibility limitation period, which is typically between 2013 and 2021. And so even though people might have lived under a water advisory before 2013, depending on their birthday, they may not be able to claim for compensation for that period. And now in terms of what people can expect between $1,300 to $2,000 per year that they're eligible for, that they lived under a long-term drinking water advisory.
How much money has been paid out, and what happens if there's some left over after the deadline?
Gotcha. So I'm not too sure on how much has been paid out yet, but I do know that we've paid out roughly 15,000 claims since August of last year when we started adjudicating and paying out people. Since then, since last August, we're now at a much higher cadence. We're paying out more and more people every 2 weeks. And so timeline to payment will vary based on when people submitted their claim form. And in terms of if there's money left over, we don't expect there to be money left over. We expect to be able to distribute all of this compensation to the individual class members that have gone without safe drinking water.
Great. Well, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for taking some time for us today, Darian.
Excellent. Thank you for having me, Silvana.